Lesson 77, Inequalities with Negative Coefficients. The main rule here that you need to remember is if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you need to reverse or flip the inequality symbol. That is important to remember because if you don't, when you check your answer, it's not going to make sense. So let's take a look at an example here. It says multiply both sides of this inequality by -1 and explain how to preserve the truth of the inequality. So right now it says 6 is greater than 5. If I multiply both sides by a -1, now I have a -6 is greater than a -5. Now that is not true because -6 is further to the left of 0. And so we need to switch the symbol because -6 is less than -5. -5 is further to the right than -6. So the correct way of writing that would be -6 is less than -5. That's why we need to flip the symbol when we are multiplying or when we are dividing by a negative number. Let's take a look at a word problem. Marcy sees a shirt she likes that costs $50. She will not buy it unless it is $30 or less. To find the percent of decrease, she solves the inequality 50 minus 50x is less than or equal to 30. What is her minimum discount? So I'm going to take my inequality and we're going to solve that. So the first step is to get our minus 50x by itself. So I'm going to subtract 50 on both sides. And I have negative 50x is less than or equal to a -20. To get x completely by itself, I'm going to divide by a -50. So now I'm left with x, but because I'm dividing by a negative number, I flip the symbol, so it's greater than or equal to 20 divided by -20 divided by -5 is positive 2/5. And I could either keep it as 2/5, or if I were to write that as a decimal, it would be x is greater than or equal to 0.4. And that 0.4 means x has to be greater than 40%. So a 40% discount, that's the minimum. Other problems here, solve and graph. We have -3x minus 10 is greater than 8. So I'm going to add 10 to both sides. So I can get my -3x by itself. So this would give us 18. The x by itself, I divide by -3. Now I have x is now less than, because I divided by a negative number, a -6. The graph, put a -6 here. Open circle on 6, it's got to go to the left because smaller numbers go to the left. Solve and graph this one. Our first step is going to distribute the -5 and the 5 on both sides. So I have a -5x plus 15 has to be greater than 5x minus 15. To get all my x's to one side, I'm going to subtract 5x. Now I have a -10x plus 15 is less than or greater than -15. To get 10x by itself, I'm going to subtract 15. And I'm at -10x is greater than -30. To get x by itself, I divide by -10. And I'm left with x is now less than a +3 because since I divide by a negative number, I flip the symbol. My number line, this would be 3. Need an open circle on 3. Less than means it goes to the left. And the last slide. A couple other problems. I'm going to add 6 to both sides. So negative 5x is less than negative 5, or negative 1 plus 6 is a positive 5. To get x by itself, divided by negative 5. So now I have x is greater than a negative 1. Flip the symbol because we're divided by a negative number. We have an open circle on negative 1. Greater than means to the right. And 7x plus 2 is less than or equal to 8x plus 4. So I'm going to subtract 8x on both sides. And I'm also going to subtract 2 on both sides. And when I do, I have a negative 1x is less than or equal to positive 2. X by itself, I divide by negative 1. And I'm left with x is now greater than or equal to a negative 2. And on my number line, I would have a filled in circle on negative 2. Greater than means to the right. And just to make sure that I did it correctly, I'm just going to pick a number that's greater than or equal to negative 2. I'm going to choose 0. 0 is greater than negative 2. So if I put a 0 in for x, I would have 7 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 2 is 2. 2 has to be less than 8 times 0 is 0 plus 4 is 4. This is true, so that means this has to be my answer. Next one. Here, let's distribute the 5. So I have 5x minus 25. On this side, negative 5x plus 25. Yeah, my x's to one side, I'm going to subtract 5x. And then I'm going to subtract 25 on both sides. And I get negative 10x is greater than a negative 50. To get x by itself, I divide by negative 10. And x is going to be less than 5. I flip the symbol because I'm divided by a negative number. You need to put an open circle on 5. Greater than means to the right. And the last one here, I got negative 2x plus 3 is greater than or equal to, distribute to negative 1, so negative 1x, negative 1 times negative 7 is plus 7. Get all my x's to one side, I'm going to add 1x, I'm going to subtract 3. That gives me a negative 1x is greater than or equal to positive 4. The x by itself, divide by negative 1. I'm left with x is now less than or equal to a negative 4. I'm going to have a filled in circle on negative 4. Less than means to the left. That is our lesson today on inequalities with negative coefficients.